Yeah, welcome to the FiveStack. It's a special one today. We have one Zev. Now we have one Lev. I feel like I should change my name to something that ends in V. But
Dev.
joined today, Dean Dev, joined today on the FiveStack out of the United States, where he has to stay, can't leave. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Lev Parnas, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Lev Parnas, nice to see you. How are you, sir?
Thank you.
Hey, before we get started, just real quick, are you related to Aaron Parnas?
That's my son, my pride
Dude,
and joy. Yeah.
He does such a great job on here. He's incredible.
He is. I'm so proud of him. I mean, when he first told me that, Dad, I'm gonna have to because his story. He became a lawyer at 21. He was graduated college at 18, went to law school at 18, 19, graduate. He was with me in Washington D.C. while he was going George Washington, while I was running around with Trump and Rudy, I was dragging him into and he was trying to stay away from all that shit and everything. So I'm so proud of him that he was not only able to go through it, because my arrest was so difficult for the whole family, and especially him being a 19-year-old kid by himself living in Washington D.C. And in the middle, while your father is all over television as this guy, and to come out of it to a point where he now is doing what he's doing. I mean, like I said, that he's my son, that's just an advantage. If he wasn't my son, I'd be proud of him as a young man doing what he's doing for the country by delivering the word. But as my son, it just makes me that much more prouder that he took adversity and it turns into positivity. And that's one of the things we should all take an advantage of him, an example, and do the same thing. Try to take this, diversity and that Trump is turning us into and turn it into positivity. And, we'll talk about it. But yes, I'm sorry for the long rant.
No,
No, that's a great way to start the show.
Yes.
And no, it's good. It's kind of and it kind of is in keeping, because that was one of the themes I took out of from Russia with Lev, the Maddow documentary. Which, by the way, we were just talking about. Congrats, you just got nominated for an Emmy.
That's amazing
for that. Well done,
with Rachel Maddow.
Yeah,
nice.
Billy Corbin. If it wasn't for them, we would have never got the truth out. So God bless them. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you guys.
It's special. But that's what I noticed about you is you're very much like Aaron. If that's how he handled all that stuff, it's like got to pivot to the next thing. Got to pivot to the next thing. It's like the Parnas family has this indomitable spirit of being able to kind of laugh through the way and also be able to do the right thing and then go ahead and make a great decision and really never get down. Every door that closes is just another one that opens. I really took that out of the documentary. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. And it comes, my father passed away when I was 11, and his name was Aaron, and Aaron wears his father's name. But he was kind of like that, by bringing us over to the United States in 1976, and I also have an older sister, Ludmila, she's like the patriarch of the family, matron. She keeps us in line and everything, because my mom passed away while I was in prison. So, but it is kind of like the Parnas thing, where we've always gone through diversity, but what keeps us together is we have the strength of the love and support as a family. I mean, we have a pretty big family. Aaron is one of 7 kids, brothers and sisters. And that the strength of the love that we have for each other and being there for each other got us through, from moving from Soviet Union over to the United States, to getting through, because remember the 80s, 70s, it was like, Cold War. That's why a lot of people don't even realize what it was like during the Cold War, where Trump is taking us, and what it could be like if it's, if we have the Cold War with the whole world, not just, back then it was just Russia. Now it's, the whole world where he's turning it into. So yeah, it kind of, thinking about it now, that's kind of our Parnas thing, is taking adversity, bringing the love of the family together, and turning it out into positivity. And that's what we're trying to pass on right now to everybody else.
I love that, because that's exactly the show we've sort of designed for today. This is a show we call the FiveStack, and normally we do 5 top stories of the day, but instead, because in honor of you, we're doing the 5 pivotal moments of your life that made you who you are today. So we're guessing these, by the way. This is not your
Well,
choice. This is just
it's
ours.
so crazy. Like sometimes fate works because you couldn't make it up. Because I have a show that I do for my paid subscribers. It's called Story Time with Love. So for those that couldn't buy the book, I read the book with them. I read a chapter, and then we go in Q&As, and I talk about what's in there,
Awesome.
what's not. Because this is literally the diaphragm of what's happening right now. So I scheduled it right after your show today because it was usually on Wednesdays, but I was tied up, so it's like perfect. So
Oh,
it's
it'd be
like
amazing.
it's an extra treat for all the subscribers out there that are going to get a chance to then go into Q&A about what we discussed today. So go ahead, guys. I'm all
That is amazing. By the way, the three of us are almost the same age. We're all sort of in our early 50s, which I think is interesting just because, Generation X is an interesting generation. We sort of are sandwiched in between these two rather big generations. And here we are, the three of us doing the same sort of work, the same kind of advocacy work for the right reasons, trying to educate the world about maybe our parents lived through, and then what we're trying to avoid living through again. But number 5, and in the moments that shaped your life, you talked about this already. The journey from Soviet Ukraine to as a Jewish immigrant, you sort of your family took this journey, which was quite a remarkable journey that really ultimately set you up for where you landed up years later as a intermediary between the Trump administration and Ukraine. So talk about that move from Ukraine, Soviet Ukraine, to Brighton. What was that like? And tell us a little bit more about that story because it's really interesting to hear about it.
Yeah, thanks you for asking. So basically, you gotta go back. I was born in 1972. Back then, Ukraine, Odessa was still considered the Soviet Union. All of these parts was one big Soviet Union. That's why we all spoke Russian. That's why it was a lot different. It wasn't Russian, Ukraine, or Georgia or Kazakhstan. All of these regions were the Soviet Union, and that's when it was during the Cold War. So in 1976. The Russian president decided that he's gonna get rid of the Jews. It was another way of getting rid of the Jews, and because he considered Jews criminals, and he started sending all of us to Israel. And mostly all of the Jewish criminals back then were considered because people that made money, they were businessmen, people that had underground factories. Because during communism, everybody had to go to work, everybody got the same salary, whatever. Everybody was knew, the bread lines were on Saturday, cheese lines were on Friday. Everybody, it was
Yeah.
communism is one of those. So people that tried to have a better life and different things would, go and basically. So, like for instance, my father had factories that made brushes. So he would have different people from different factories bring material, and then at night they would have an underground factory and make brushes and sell brushes in the black market in Odessa in Ukraine. And it was like one of the considered biggest, where criminality, this was considered the biggest criminality, not killing or any of the crimes that we consider crimes, but it was like, trying to get a better life from, communism.
Hmm.
So these are the people he tried. They were getting rid of the Soviet Union, so we were one of them, and we were traveling to Israel. My father had to flee first because they were trying to arrest him for that and put him in prison. Actually, at that time, it was called getting the death sentence. They would have shot you for something, for financial criminal crimes. So my father got away earlier. He on foot. He fled through Poland and then Germany, and through friends and family, he was smuggled on a ship and brought to the United States. He made a spot in Detroit, Michigan, and basically was waiting for us. But we couldn't come to the United States. We had to go to Israel because that's where we were told we were going. So on our way to Israel, we stopped in Rome, Italy. It was a stop layover, and all the families there we were like for 6 months. We were all together waiting to go. And it was 1976. It was the 200 bicentennial of the United States, and the Italian and the U.S. ambassador to Italy flew to Italy. And I don't never forget the story my sister tells me, because I was 4 years old at the time, but she tells me a story that they came on, they had a lottery. 200 people won a visa, a green card. I'm not visa, a green card to the United
Yeah.
States. and my sister won, or I won. I'm not sure exactly, or both of us won. But I don't want to mess up the story. But the truth is, we ended up, instead of going to Israel, we ended up going to the United States. We got our green card. We won at the lottery, and that was our first. We came to the United States in '76. We immigrated in Detroit, and then eventually 3 years later, moved to New York, Brooklyn, New York, Brighton Beach. Brighton Beach is a very interesting little place. It's a little enclave right by the ocean, and it was a place where it was a biggest immigration of Soviet Jews at the time, where we all immigrated. It was a place like, if you watch Cheers, it's like everybody knows your name type of place.
Hmm.
Everybody spoke the same language, kept to the same routines, and kind of. That's where we all immigrated to. And remember, back then, a lot of people say, your connection to the mob and all of these criminal. Well, because you have to understand, when we came from the Soviet Union, we had no trust for the government. We had no trust for the police. So when we came here, it was easy to align with like the Italian mafia, because they were also street people that were against. It was more of, it wasn't the same type of crimes we see nowadays. It was more of like a rebellion against the government, not to pay taxes, not to do stuff where he was anti-government, because we came from a regime where it was communism, to try to be free. And because of that, a certain lifestyle evolved in that little Brighton Beach neighborhood that today we see a lot that came out of it, because, obviously the relationships that started between when the Soviet Union fell, that's where I really became like, that's where my entrance to that world came, because my father passed away when I was 11. And I started doing all kinds of jobs. And one of my jobs was actually at 15. I worked for Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Oh,
selling.
wow.
I sold co-ops in Trump Co-op Village in Brooklyn. I lived there, sold co-ops, and I was 15. I even lied on my application and got my real estate license. Back then, we didn't have computers, so it was.
Did you meet him? Did you meet Donald Trump at that age,
At
or
that age, no. I met
no?
Fred though. No,
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
meet Donald. I met Fred. And I write about it in my book, and I guess in the documentary it's also
Yeah.
going to talk about. But so that was my kind of like, but at the same time, I also was around the influence of a lot of mobsters and gangsters, because these are the people we looked
Yeah.
up to. These are the people that control the towns, and so I was privy to a lot of stuff that led into later on, when like I said, when I turned 18, 19 years old. And it was 89, I think 1989, 90, when right before the fall of the Soviet Union, I was sent to the old Soviet, when it was still the Soviet Union. Before, I was there actually when the tanks came down, the revolution.
Oh,
I
wow.
was on the Red Square watching this happen unfold. And a lot of these people that you see, these names, these oligarchs, I knew them before they were even criminals, before they were nobody. Some of these
Yeah.
were professors, teachers that became criminals, that became oligarchs. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that. I'm sorry, go ahead. Dean, you were gonna say
No,
something?
I think it's fascinating how Lev Parnas is somehow always in the middle of like the evolution of history, like Red Square, tanks, Donald Trump, White House. I mean, it's crazy when you consider your story. And if you've seen your documentary, going from this Jewish, Russian Jewish, Ukrainian Jewish immigrant to Brighton Beach, and incorporating, and don't think a lot of people understand that what you just said too is that mobs in Russia were literally, anti-government for a reason, because the government was like authoritarian regimes was running around killing people. So you just kind of fell into it, right? Like falling into the streets, falling into the job that you had to do. And the story that you told about crashing that car that was filled with millions of dollars. It was like, for people like us, we don't understand it, but that life that you led was a life about
I,
survival, right?
I was 18 years old. Just think about it. I
Yeah.
was 18 years old driving around in the car. And you got to go understand, this is 1990. So you're talking about $2 million is like $20 million right now. That's a lot. And we're talking about bills, $5 bills, $10 bills. I mean, running around gas stations all over New Jersey, collecting, from each gas station and throwing it in my trunk. And I'm an 18-year-old kid driving around in a Lincoln Town Car. And then all of a sudden, I get a tractor trailer that goes over it and get into the accident. And the cops come. It was you gotta watch the movie. I mean, it was a whole thing.
Oh, it's crazy.
But But we ended up, I'll tell you the funny part, and it always leads back to Trump somehow. We ended up that night in Atlantic City at Trump Taj Mahal in the casino playing. Not that he had anything to do with it, but it was just, always somehow my life. And that's the crazy part. That's why, you need to really read the book and get a lot of an understanding. Is my life intertwined with Trump. Like a lot of the same players and a lot of the same people. The difference between our lives is he was a little older than me, and he was also a lot wealthier than me. So I came from the streets, but he had to deal with the streets.
Hmm.
So the people that I grew up with, he had to eventually deal with, because you have to understand, in the 70s, 80s, you couldn't do any construction in Manhattan or Brooklyn without dealing with the likes of, Fat Tony Salerno, who was the boss of the Genovese crime family. I mean, Roy Cohen was Trump's lawyer, so you have to understand, and his somebody that you looked up to. So being able to do a casino in New Jersey, you have to deal with a certain type of people. So Trump grew up doing business with the same people that I, considered my uncles and my family. That's what we called them, uncles and friends. I mean, people that in real life. So it going all the way up until eventually we got together. Until eventually, we became so close, and I became such a, like I tell everybody, that day when he said, and that when I did that fundraiser for him in 2015, and we were sitting in Robert Pereira's $135 million estate on the water, and Trump turned around, looked into the ocean, and started gazing and started. That's probably the most human I've ever seen him, and so real. And he just started saying that was the time when the tape came out about him saying
Grab me by the pussy. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it and I did. My wife was with me.
You're welcome. My wife's not here, so I'm good.
So my wife's probably watching somewhere. To make sure. You see, honey, it wasn't me. It was Dean.
Yeah, it's Dean. Blame Dean. Yeah.
But he was, his ratings were like at the 30%. And the elections were a month away. This was October. There was no way he was projected, had any chance of winning. And he just sat there. He was supposed to be there for 15 minutes. And that was a dinner where me and him spent like an hour talking. Like literally, like my wife, if you watch the movie, she said it was just like nobody else was there. It was just the two of us talking, like two guys sitting on a bench in Brighton Beach talking about shit. It was like crazy. And after that, like he said to me, he goes, I don't need to do this. I'm doing it for you, the people. I could be golfing all day long. And something about that, the way he said it, the way it was like, I was like, like really, like this fucking guy doesn't need this shit. Like, like who would want to go and, look at what he's going through. And that's when I said, like, I got Trumpanized, Coltonized, Meganized, whatever you want to call it. But that was it. After that, I mean, literally every day I was with him. I was at the Hillary Clinton debate. I was at all the rallies. I was at the Hilton when he won. I mean, it was on. So a lot of people also don't realize that I met Rudy after Trump, not it wasn't. I didn't meet Trump because of Rudy. Rudy came in through a totally business deal. Rudy was trying to make money, going through a divorce. He tried to get a piece of fraud guarantee, a company, an insurance company that I was involved in. So, and then the whole Ukraine thing just blew up that one day in the Grand Havana room in the cigar room. And when I showed Rudy the video of Joe Biden saying, "Get rid of the prosecutor, otherwise we won't give you $1 billion."
We're going to get to all those moments. I don't want to race ahead because it's so good to hear the story. No, I love hearing the story. I love all of that. Dean, do you want to follow up on anything on that?
No. I want to get to number 4 and see where this goes, because I want to get to, like, there's different parts of Lev's life in the top 5 in the FiveStack where I'm really excited. And I want to ask. I've got questions about Giuliani. I've got a bunch of other questions. So, but anyway, go ahead.
Let's race
fuck, dude. Just keep going. This is awesome.
You guys, I'm yours.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about, that you were in sort of like Trump's alter ego growing up in some ways, because it's so, he was really Mr. Brooklyn at that time in some ways, because they built a lot of the properties over there. That's where a lot of the young immigrants used to go there. That's where
Brooklyn, Queens, and then all of a sudden he becomes Manhattan. Trump.
Yeah, so it's no real surprise that there's a connection there, because
New Jersey, the Taj Mahal. I mean, he just kept it's like the John Gotti effect. If you guys remember John Gotti, we called him the Teflon Don, because even though he was a killer, murderer, somebody that was a very bad person, people were willing to stand up and go fight for him because he was anti-government, anti the police, anti what we're seeing nowadays in the same thing with Mega. That's happening, playing out in the same exact way. It's just history repeats itself. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's also really interesting for me because I've just heard these same stories from Felix Sater and Michael Cohen. I've heard a lot of these.
Felix
So
Sater for 40 years.
yeah, I bet you do.
Felix
I
Sater
bet you.
I know Felix Sater 40 years, just so you know that.
I can believe it. Yeah, absolutely. You guys come from the same neighborhood, really, and a lot of the same experiences that he's described, you've described to me. So, but let's go into number 4, which is really about this moment you met, and we are rushing through a bit here, but we want to get to the good stuff. So, the number 4 is the time you met Donald Trump. You donated $325,000 to him. No, you didn't.
No, so the first time, as I told you just previously,
Yeah.
I met Donald Trump plenty of times. The first time I've ever donated any money was $50,000 to that dinner that we did for him in 2015. Then what happened was once Trump already won, I was approached by a super
Right.
PAC that was being run by Trump and Don Jr. unofficially, officially. It was America First, and they put together a plan basically for $1 million donor. You became part of it's like his gold card. You become part of the inner circle, and Trump has dinner at your house or at the place where you want with like a small group of 5-10 people if you want.
Right.
So the special group. So we became $1 million donors. I just only was able to donate 325 before we got arrested. So we didn't get a chance to pay the full, what's it called? But yes, that's where the fee.
So this was at Mar-a-Lago. You were sitting next to him, as I'm told. This research tells me at least. Tell me what transpired at that particular dinner. Like it was the day you sort of started talking about Maria Yovanovitch, or was there other days when did that all start happening?
That was not in Mar-a-Lago. That was actually at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. So it was a dinner. We had basically a private dinner, and actually the tape recording, if for all the viewers who want to listen to the whole 1.5-hour private conversation between me and Donald Trump, you could Google it. It's out there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I made it public a while ago. But basically it was a dinner as part of this for this group of, we called it like the inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. My partner was there. There was another maybe three or four other close. Jack Nicholson's grandson was there. The golfer's grandson was there. There was a guy from, I forgot his name. He was the head building something in Singapore, some real estate guy. And then there was some Canadian couple there. That was it. And then it was there. Don Jr. was there, and then you had Tommy Hicks, who was then the co-chair of the Republican Party. He went from the America First. So that was it. It was just a very small dinner. And the interesting part, when I came to the dinner, the things I was planning to talk to him about was cannabis. Because we were discussing him floating me, making me the cannabis czar, and making me like. So I was trying to tell him that he needs to legalize cannabis, and that's a way for him to win the 2020 election. That was my intent. But then all of a sudden, in the beginning of the meeting, he goes into Ukraine, and prior to that, the crazy part, which a lot of people don't know, is it wasn't that I didn't know too much, but I wasn't politically inclined. So I heard rumors. Just, my partner Igor was from Ukraine business-wise, and, I would be in the community. So you would hear rumors about the ambassador didn't like Trump and this stuff. It wasn't like I had some kind of intel or I was some, a director of some kind of agency. So when the question all of a sudden he came up, and you guys say I'm sitting with him like this, literally.
Yeah, you were right across the dinner table from him.
Right, like literally right across. You can't get any closer. And as I'm eating his burger, he looks at me, he goes to me, so tell me, like, well, how long could Ukraine last in the war without our support? I was like, not very long. I mean, Mr. President, I mean, you need to support. And then he makes a comment, something like, because Don Jr. jumps in and says, hey, Dad, you just sent him the javelins. Obama didn't send him no weapons. You sent him the javelins. He's like, oh, yes, I sent him the javelins. Like, he was
got the line.
Like, I sent him the javelins. And, you see the conversation going. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because we were just talking, it was like conversation talking. I said to him, he goes to me, so what do we got to do? And I said, well, the first thing you got to do is you got to get rid of the ambassador. Now take it. I didn't mean like literally get rid of her, kill her, shoot her. Or I meant like, I'm from Brooklyn. I said, get rid of her, like fire her. You got to get rid of the ambassador and put in an ambassador that is pro whatever you stand for. And we were all shocked because when I said that, I don't know if the video does it justice or shows it, but you had to see, he just stopped and froze. He looked at me like with this dead, like serious head. He said, looked at me and he said, "Get rid of her. Get rid of her now." Like that.
Yeah.
And we all stood there and we all
Yeah.
looked at that like, and we're like, what the fuck is going on? And nobody knew what to do. So the crazy part, we start clapping. We all start clapping like fucking. We just got rid of that bastard of fucking Ukraine. It's
Yeah.
and you see it in the and play out, and I mean, so surreal now thinking back how fucked up it was. Excuse me for my language,
Yeah.
but I get and I apologize to Maria Ivanovic because I mean, look, she never deserved. She was actually a crime fighter trying to save our democracy, going up against, stopping these oligarchs and criminals. And basically, because, the information I got that, and that just, this is, and just to tell you guys, and I know it might be a little bit also, but it's, I think, important for the viewers and everybody out there because we are still trying to save our democracy. And part of the information we're giving is what's it called? Is what Donald Trump did with me. The new left Parnas right now is Stephen Witkoff. Stephen Witkoff is the new left Parnas. Because if you think about history repeating itself, back then, in 2019, the Secretary of State was Pompeo. The National Security Advisor was Bolton. Neither one of them went to Ukraine to deal with Zelensky and get an investigation. It was me and Giuliani. Today, you see the same thing unfolding. Who the National Secretary of State is Rubio. The ex Waltz is now ex, but was during this. Neither one of them has met Putin once.
Right.
Stephen
Right. The
Witkoff
point.
has sat with him at least 4 times that we know of. And that the kind. So what I'm saying to you, Donald Trump deals in the shadow diplomacy, that same world of Brighton Beach, that same world of that underworld belly of the mob and that dictator, where even though he is in charge, just think about it. This is very important. Even though he's in charge, he has everything. All of his loyalists, he doesn't need to do this. Just like he didn't need to fire the ambassador the way he did. But he does it it's like he doesn't need to get rid of Kirill Abreu Garcia the way he did. He could have done it in the right way and you wouldn't have even known who this gentleman was. But he does it for a purpose. He's doing it for a purpose because it's all being set up for the bigger game. The end game for him is never leaving office, fellas. Never leaving power. And I know a lot of people say, don't talk. He's trying to distract you. Trust me when I tell you, you hear it, and I'm telling you, that is where his head was then. That is where his head was all this time, and that's where his head is right now. And that's why he's destroying the Constitution and all our institutions from inside. And the most important thing he's doing is the economy. Because when the economy goes in any dictatorship, you'll take a look, the first thing goes the economy, because then people don't care about anything else. They just want to be able to eat and survive. And then you come out and say, you know how Donald Trump, what's his famous words? I'm the only one that could fix it. Those are the famous
Creates
words
the
of
problem first, yeah.
any dictator out there, authoritarian as well. So I'm sorry to again, but that's
that's a very important point.
Exact thing playing out right now. History repeating itself.
Yeah, it's great context, and you're right, and it's funny because to hear you talk like this now, and then to watch the documentary, and to watch you daily, whether you're with Malcolm Nance or Michael Cohen, great podcasts, by the way. Yeah, you're very welcome. Love them. Whether you're with those guys, the dichotomy of that moment that you had in that donor mansion during a fundraiser, where you were just enamored, right? Just, oh, this guy wants to do all these good things. This guy's trying to, this is my kind of guy. He doesn't like the government. I grew up not liking the government. The government chased my family out of the house. And you bought it hook, line, and sinker. You knew who he was. And then to sit here and hear you say that, was it prison, or were you willingly saying, you know what, I know the stories about the Trump family at the time of you meeting Trump. I know this guy. I know he's a hustler. I know he's a gangster, but I really believe him, to the point where today you're like, dude, he is a dictator in waiting. He wants to be a fucking king. This is going to be a disaster. We need to save America. Like, what changed for you?
Well, before I get into change, you also understand we have to take responsibility, because it's not that, I was some nice, choir boy, and all of a sudden I got mesmerized by Donald Trump. Donald Trump feeds into what we have, and I was a hustler. I looked up to Donald Trump, not because he did some good deeds, but because he had money, because he had power. And that's what was driving me, and that's what drives a lot of the people that are around him, and they're using him because he's a transactional.
Well, it's got to be driving everybody around him.
That's what I'm saying to you. It's either money or power, corruption. That's what drives people, because people that want good for they get repelled by Donald Trump. They
Mm.
wouldn't stand. That's why right now I would never be around him because and it didn't happen overnight. Because as I tell as I talk about, not only was I in a cult, but I'm a loyal dog. I grew up in a place in town where loyalty means everything, and it took a while, sitting in a prison cell for the first 2 weeks until I got, I think the first crack came is when I got the postcard from Rudy from the White House. It slipped under my door cell in my prison cell, telling me that don't worry, everything's gonna be okay. 7.5 years, Paul Manafort got it. I really thought I was going crazy then, and because a lot of things happened in my life, only God could stop. Because within a few hours afterward, that I was able to smuggle out that postcard to an attorney that my wife got that I didn't even know was coming in. Literally 2 hours later, they searched my whole cell to get rid of the evidence, so I could never. Who would believe me? Think about it. If I don't smuggle out this postcard, does anybody ever believe me that I, in maximum security, where I'm in a 24-hour facility, I get a postcard slipped
Mm.
under my door from the
Amazing.
president's attorney, from the postmark from the White House, folks,
Wow.
not just with a stamp. I mean, not just literally
Wow.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You can't make this fucking shit
No, you
up. I mean,
can't.
this
You
You're
can't.
so
president
stupid. It's almost as dumb as the Four Seasons press conference at the lawn mowing
Yeah,
company.
I
yeah.
mean, it's like it's literally they I don't know, I don't know what the fuck they did, but just think about that. And I
Yeah.
was being held, and I was
Amazing.
arrested under espionage. So I had no rights at that time. Attorneys, right? They did whatever the fuck they wanted to. I mean, they were trying to keep me in there. So that was the breaking point. That's where I think it started. Mentally, I started losing it, thinking, what the fuck is going on and where is everybody? And then when I finally got to speak to my wife, and when my wife and Aaron at the time, they started telling me like dad or quietly that, Trump is saying he doesn't know who you are.
Mm.
And then when my wife started telling me Rudy and Victoria Tunzing and all of these people that were my family are not all of a sudden picking up her phone calls, not me, I'm in jail,
Mm.
and stuff like that happening. I started realize, because remember, I wasn't just part of Mega, I was Mega, and I saw others go through certain stuff that I started going through, and it started clicking in. I think the biggest move happened when I was able to get my lawyer, Joe Bondi. Joe was somebody, just again, it's like you can't make this shit up, because one of my biggest problems, who do I get as a lawyer? Because it was so politicalized. God
Mm.
forbid I get somebody that was a pro-Trumper, my life is over. I'm looking at 20 years or something like that. So, I knew Joe Bondi. He was a cannabis lawyer.
Yeah.
Actually, it's crazy. He's a cannabis lawyer, but he was a great criminal attorney, but cannabis was his passion. And
Before we dig into some of that, because I know you're really
Sorry, go ahead.
no. I'm just want to stay a little bit on Rudy, because
Yeah, go ahead.
when did you became sort of Rudy's guy in Ukraine? When did you first meet Rudy, firstly, and how did that happen? And then this, you became the unofficial ambassador to this Trump administration, and you were doing this incredible lobbying in Ukraine. Tell us about how you met him and what happened.
Yeah, and tell us. I want to know how he smelled too, because to me, he looks like a guy that smells terrible at about 5:30 p.m.
I'll start off with how he smells. Just for you to understand, if you take a lot of bourbon or a lot of alcohol, and you take a cigar and you just let it burn all day, and you leave it locked in like a 6x6 little room for all day, that's what it is. I mean,
That's what I thought.
I mean, I swear to you, I couldn't breathe. I've never been in so many cigar rooms. I mean, like where there's no windows nor doors, fellas. I mean, like it's like I don't like I remember it. To me, I thought I was gonna die one day in
Oh my
one of those
gosh, yeah.
cigar rooms. It's just all sitting there for hours, and I don't drink alcohol. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
I
wow.
mean, I smoke weed, but I don't even drink. So for me, it was crazy. So anyway, Rudy, the first time I met Rudy was actually at that same dinner. I was at that dinner because when Trump came to that dinner in 2015, Rudy came with him. That's where I met like the entourage. But I didn't get close with Rudy because me and Trump hit it off. So Rudy for me was like, even though Rudy was Rudy, but
Yeah.
Trump was Trump at the time. So I didn't get back to Rudy till A year afterwards, like in 2017, I got approached. But this is how crazy. I mean, we're gonna run a little overtime, but
That's
the guy,
okay.
I'm okay with it, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
you want to
fascinated.
hear? So you can, because this shit, you can't make this shit up. So I get a call from this cigar guy and for a rich Republican donor in Florida that knows that I was close with Trump and everything. He says, "Look, I have a friend. He wants to be the state attorney of Florida, and he needs you to put in a good word for with Trump for him. Can you meet him?" I was like, "Sure." That's what I was doing back then. I said, "I'll meet him." I meet him. So I meet the guy. The guy happens to be John Sale. If you guys don't know who John Sale is, he used to be ASU with Rudy Giuliani, under Rudy, with Rudy in New York for the Southern District of New York.
Oh, wow.
Knows Rudy, fuck buddies like this. Trump knows everybody. He's a serious. I mean, he was then Trump's lawyer later on. Just so you understand, this is who John Sale was. So I'm sitting
Yeah, I
in
remember
front
the
of him, and
name.
I'm saying to him, what the fuck does he need me? To put in a good word with Trump, like this is my life, just so you understand. I'm sitting here with a
Wow.
guy that it knows these people way longer than I know any of them, closer, and he's asking me sitting there. And I went to this meeting with my son Daniel. I'll never forget. He was 16 years old at the time, and we're sitting at the meeting, my son till this day could believe and he's asking me can you put in a good word for Trump for me? I want to be sad. I was like, if you're Rudy's friend, I'm sure but Rudy probably. He goes, yeah, Rudy will do it, but I hear you're really close with him, so we're having this conversation, and then he goes to me, but what? By the way, what do you do? And that's when I was just starting my fraud guarantee stuff. Like I had an idea, and I tell him about my fraud guarantee insurance, and he goes, Rudy would be perfect for you. I said, really? He goes, yeah, he did what he did with LifeLock. He could do with fraud guarantee.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, let's do it. He goes, let me put the call into Rudy. I said, okay, you call Rudy, I'll call Trump. This is how we leave. We were in
Wow.
Sunny Isles, Florida. This is how we left. And next thing you know, he was trying to get me and Rudy together. And I'm walking through and I was living at the Trump International back then, going to all the Trump stuff. And I'm walking through the lobby and I see Rudy. And I just come up to him and I say, hey, Rudy, John Sale told me for us to tell you. He goes, oh, you're Lev. And basically that night we ended up going to a Yankee game. And literally, I mean, we were together every like 5-6 days literally from that day on, we were inseparable. It was crazy.
Who's boss? Is Rudy Trump's boss, or is Trump Rudy's boss?
Oh, Trump's Rudy's boss.
Okay.
Rudy sold his soul, I mean, gave it up. Rudy, what the downfall of Rudy was when he lost the election.
Hmm.
He never, because Rudy's a fame whore. He was never able to get back that, and that's why he jumped onto Trump's bandwagon. Not because he likes Trump.
Yeah.
Trump treats him like shit. Trump treats him like shit, doesn't give him, but he knows that Trump values the loyalty. And it's like it's a sad story, but it's like you watch in some movies like where the owner could beat the dog, and the dog, and you look, but then all of a sudden you'll come up attack the owner, the dog will stand up and give his life for the owner. That's kind of what Rudy is.
Yeah.
It's like
Interesting.
Trump won't pay for his lawyers, won't tell them, will say won't know. He'll make comments. I don't even know he's my attorney or not. He'll do all of that, but then if he says, Rudy, go out there, get me shit on Joe Biden, Rudy will be the first one to do it.
Hmm.
So explain something to me then, if you can just stand on the Rudy thing. Where did it go from going to a Yankee game? And by the way, the picture that your wife supplied of you wiping his mouth as he was getting ready for a press conference made me laugh. I'm like, oh my God, they were close. But it was like a son helping his dad out because he had like some custard on for lunch.
I swear to you, we were that. I mean, he was godfather to my son Nathan. Literally,
Yeah.
I mean, he was godfather. I mean, that's why it hurt so much, guys. That's why he wasn't. I'm saying to you, it wasn't even the fact that the Trump's disloyalty. What hurt me more than anybody was Rudy. I mean, because besides being he was my lawyer also. You gotta understand, they were him, Victoria, Tony, and they never showed up in the jail cell. They could have came in. My wife, they wouldn't let my wife, my kids. Aaron couldn't come because I was under, espionage. Nobody could come visit me in Alexandria. But I was actually sitting at the same time with Maria Bertino, the Russian spy that they threw out. What's her name? remember
Maria Butina is her name. Yeah.
Maria
Yeah,
Butina.
yeah.
We were at the same time in there. So
Oh
I'm
wow,
saying to you,
that's
but
a story.
yeah, I mean, it's all. I have my whole life. So and just so you understand, and he never came to visit me. He never came to see me. The only time he started, what's it called? When I got out and I hired Joe, they started getting scared that I'm gonna start talking, and that's when he started making a push, calling and offering me pardons and telling me to everything's great, Trump loves me, this is part, because and just start. But it was already too late at that, because once I felt disloyalty, it was like, it was too much to deal with. And at that time, I had to make a choice, because if you guys saw the movie, you saw I was at such a point where I was losing my family, because even though I couldn't see it, but my wife, my kids, everybody, I made their life such miserable because of this whole mega stuff and all this transformation into somebody who I never was. And they stayed with me. And yeah, but when I hit prison, I mean, it was another level of loyalty that they had to come with, because they didn't agree with the shit I was doing to begin with. And now here the whole world was against them. My wife was, literally breastfeeding at the time, and they wanted to arrest her because she was on a bank account with me. They wanted to arrest Aaron because he went to meetings with me and Rudy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people don't know. Like, I mean, what my family went through, what the Justice Department, what the Southern, what they do to you. God forbid you ever get caught up in that system in the way we did.
Right.
So yeah, so it was. I don't even know what we were talking about.
No, we were talking about no. It was just it doesn't matter. I do a little bit, and we'll get to that now.
We're
But
still Rudy.
it was we're still on Rude. We're still on the big guy. We're still on Giuliani. The fall of Rudy Giuliani. At what point did they cooked up this plan? Joe Biden is starting to think about running for president. Trump is shitting his pants. Not that that's different on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday, Saturday. Yeah, I want to find out how he smells too. But like, but at what point? But at what point?
Listen to me. I gotta say, don't forget, I'm still on supervised release under Trump DOJ.
Right.
But
don't forget, Laura Luber. Remember when she brought the binder?
Yeah.
I was one of those names on the binder. So just keep that.
Oh, were you?
Okay.
Okay. So just quickly, yes or no? Does he smell like a filled diaper? Because Kinzinger says he does.
I'll say no comment for my safety of my family.
His personal safety.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take that as a yes, because I'm in Canada. Anyway,
you can.
So,
Your safety, and it's okay. But
so at what point did they cook this idea up? Biden's a threat. Now we got to get something on him. And they tell you and Rudy, go to Ukraine and figure something out for us. What?
Well, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. We came up with Rudy. This was Rudy's, and it all started back. So basically, Rudy, I gotta take you guys back to 2016, 17, 18.
Yeah.
Before I commit. If you recall the whole Mueller report, you guys remember all of the Russiagate, all of the things going on. So Rudy comes back into Trump's life to save him from the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
This is the time Rudy meet up. This is the time when that's why Rudy starts coming to Washington, D.C. Simultaneously, Rudy starts working with some far right wings like Steve Bannon and others, like to dig up information and Manafort's lawyers. That's why he wrote me that postcard.
Right.
He was close to that to discredit basically the Black Ledger, that Manafort, if you remember Manafort's Black Ledger. So to discredit that, Rudy was also looking into Ukraine, trying to prove to the American public that it wasn't the Russians interfering in the elections; it was the Ukrainians.
Right.
You remember that? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
This was Rudy's push going back to this 2018. Now we come in. We're dealing business, have nothing to do with Ukraine. We're talking about fraud guarantee, baseball game, donating to Trump, marijuana, cannabis, nothing to do with Ukraine until that dinner. Because what a lot of people don't know and miss the biggest part in this whole thing is when I got arrested, there was a co-conspirator one with me that later they dropped those charges and made that whitewashed to make That was a co-conspirator, Pete Sessions, Congressman Pete
Yeah.
Sessions. That right after my Trump dinner, I went to him in the Capitol in his office where he wrote a letter to Donald Trump saying to get rid of the U.S. ambassador and handed it to me because saying that Pompeo has been disregarding him and he needs to get directly handing it to me to deliver to Trump 2 weeks later.
I actually broke the story about Pete Sessions being conspirator number one because everyone had suspected it was somebody else. But I remember it was Pete Sessions, and Pete Sessions was involved in I actually called him up to ask him about there was a lot of money that went through him to you to Rudy, right? I mean, ultimately, Rudy got paid.
Pete Sessions was supposed to be the ambassador of Ukraine. When he lost the race, Pete Sessions was part. The crazy part, just think about how the world wraps around. So now, when I go testify in 2024 to save Joe Biden's ass because they're going after him to tell the truth, and guess who's sitting right up there?
Pete Sessions.
Pete Sessions.
Wow.
Yeah, you've given lots of money to.
So my first thing to the committee was I looked at James Comer and then I said, "Here you are, trying to talk to him. Meanwhile, you got a co-conspirator number one sitting over there.
Yeah, why don't you talk to him?"
and you're telling me this is the time. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
You can't make it up. You can't. You can't make it up. But did he?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did he give you the like? What is the situation there? They gave you money to give to Rudy, or how did it work? Who gave you? How did the funneling of the money go?
That was the oligarchs. Rudy hit the Ukrainian and Russian oligarchs were paying for that, and American oligarchs. There was American billionaires, like for instance, Peter Thiel's plane we were on, it was flying around.
Oh, you were?
In 2018 for the midterms. Like Harry Sargent, with the Venezuela stuff. I mean, there were a lot. And then you got, Dmitry Firtash from, Ukraine.
Yeah.
So,
Kolomoisky.
And then Rudy was doing business with some other guys, Pavel Fuchs at the time. Unbeknownst to me, and then Rudy was also doing business supposedly with this lobbyist, but he was the one actually doing with Qatar and other things. So listen, Rudy was divorced at the time. And he was trying to hide money from Julie. I mean, it's black and white. I mean, you could sugarcoat it, you could make it anything. And he was in financial problems. He was in a depression. He was popping all this medicine. Who knows what pills he was popping? Definitely Viagra. Drinking all day and fucking smoking cigars all day. At his age, that's not a good combination.
No.
And then going on TV and doing what he was doing. You saw, I mean, everybody saw it, but I was the one that was making sure he didn't butt dial somebody. I was making sure he didn't slobber himself when I really cared for him because I truly believed we were, that he was a hero, America's mayor and stuff. So I couldn't, being in the cult, being around that and seeing, I couldn't see it until I got out of it. I had to have an out of body experience, like to see what the fuck actually was going on and what was happening. Because, when you're in it, it's like being on a drug. If you take, I've never taken heroin or any of these drugs, but it's like what I hear is like you lose your, sense. So that's what being in a cult is like, because it's like you're not doing common sense things. You're doing the opposite. Your brain is making you work differently.
Mm-hmm. I do want to actually just finish that question though. There was money that came through Pete Sessions to you, or did it?
No, from Pete Sessions.
So you paid Pete Sessions on behalf of your company, and then Pete Sessions took the money and ran and did what with it? Just used it as the campaign and pocketed it, or?
Well, I don't know. That's the whole question, because they dropped all those things. They literally, like, the funny part is they took Pete Sessions out, but I still ended up, one of my charges was, so this is the crazy part. Just think about how I went to prison because we donated to Pete Sessions. The maximum you could donate is $2,500.
Yeah.
So we had a business credit card. And both me and my partner had a card from it. So he donated $2,500 on his card. I donated $2,500 on my card. Technically, it's the same account.
Right.
And because of that, nobody's ever got to prison for something like that. I was the first one. We were the first one. Like, I mean, I just say it went from espionage to that. Like, this is that. It's like the Hunter Biden. If you take a look at the Hunter Biden story, I mean, they tried to put him away from, doing what's it called, illegal lobbying, Fair Act, all of that, and then they got him for taxes and
a gun,
an illegal gun.
Yeah.
You're right. They wanted to get me for, some crazy, what's it called, espionage, and then.
But they landed up FEC charge.
Right, we'll give you. And the crazy part is, a week before my sentencing, I got the letter, which I'll show this, from the FEC, because this whole thing started. The FEC filed a complaint.
Mhm.
That's how the whole investigation. And then Kamala Harris, she was a senator at the time in Blumenthal, signed a letter asking the FBI to look into us. This is how it all started. Nobody even knows there was a Denver who actually became president. I mean, vice president.
Wow.
Afterwards, it said, you
Wow.
can't make this up.
It
But she's the
can't.
one that signed the letter while she was the senator to look into it. And then when right before sentencing, I got the letter from the FEC saying that we find you, after doing further investigation, we find you not guilty in anything to do. So I got found not guilty by the FEC,
Mm.
but got found guilty by the DOJ.
That's crazy. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Dean?
Yeah, no, I'm taking it all in.
Okay.
It's there's so much nuance here. I'm thinking like, obviously when your name came up, and I was glued to the TV from 2016 to like 2020. Like it just was like, because in disbelief that this could all be going on. There was this narrative that, you were sent into Trump's orbit via Russia, via Putin, but
That's what
like
I
what
was
I'm
arrested for. Exactly. It was Bill
right.
Barr's
Yeah.
mandate.
Yeah, but it's completely
Bill Barr,
wrong.
exactly.
Yeah, it's completely wrong, right? Like that's why I'm loving this story. Is I'm putting together these narratives, and the idea that
Well,
you were ever sent into Trump's orbit on behalf of Putin to fuck with his campaign, fuck with him, commit fraud, commit espionage. It's absolutely not the offering.
Well, you're talking about something very important that has to do with what's going on right now with Witkoff.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. You got to understand the reason I was chosen and what they tried to do, and the reason he chose Witkoff and what is he picks people that then could be used as scapegoats.
Mm.
Because look at my background. So when I get arrested, what's the first thing that happens? First of all, a lot of people don't even know and realize that the day of my arrest, Bill Barr flew, the Attorney General of the United States of America, flew to New York to the Southern District office to oversee my arrest.
Oh, wow.
Let's start off with that. The day of my arrest, on that flight that I got arrested on, I wasn't fleeing anywhere. I was flying. I was supposed to be Rudy Giuliani was supposed to be on that flight with me, Victoria Tunzi, Joe DiGenova, me, and Igor. We had a meeting in Fox Studios the night before. All of a sudden, the next morning, everybody cancels except for me and Igor. And then we get arrested with the notion. And you got to keep in mind, the FBI, CIA, all of these agencies were following us for all along. They knew everything. They knew we were not fleeing. They knew we were going to try and get Hunter Biden's laptop.
But we fly to Vienna, weren't you? Or was that
right? Vienna.
Yeah,
But they needed to make. But they waited for us to get. They could have arrested us at the hotel lobby.
Yeah.
They could have arrested us on the way driving. They could have, but they waited until we were about to board the plane to make it seem we were fleeing. Because if you remember when we got arrested, the headlines were Russians fleeing. We got them on the tarmac. They're fleeing. That's it. They were running away.
See, FiveStack was the story that
I got 6 kids, 7 kids, and a wife. Where am I running to? Where? Why was that? First of all, you know that where they fucked up, guys, and nobody ever asked the question. That's why the media is so fucked. Nobody ever asked the question. Why were they running? Did somebody tip them off? Because this was a sealed indictment. Why were they running? No,
could be.
Nobody,
I mean,
there was no investigation. I'm working for the president of the fucking United States. Where am I running?
Where were you?
Sealed the investigation after you arrested me.
Yes, good point. So you think it was what, a setup? It was
we know it was a setup.
Okay,
I mean, so Bill Barr went to Southern District, and after Southern District, you know where he went? You know where he had dinner that night?
I have no idea.
With Rupert Murdoch.
Really?
And that's why Fox never reported even my arrest. Because Fox, remember where my meeting was the day before. Remember who was supposed to be doing the interview? Sean Hannity.
Right.
So it was all complicit. It was all Bill Barr. See, but what Bill Barr fucked up, see, they had me. I was gone. They had me dead to right. They had the Democrats hated me. The Republicans, there was no. Well, Bill Barr fucked up is he never could have imagined that because of me being a fucking idiot and not knowing how to use my technology, that I would save everything, not only because it was history to me, because I never believed I was doing anything wrong, but I downloaded it on so many iClouds that when the FBI arrested me and they realized all the shit I had, they had a heart attack.
Right. Oh my gosh.
That's why they were trying. They try to shut me up, and that's why they want me going out there testifying and everything, because they knew, holy shit, this shit's gonna come out anyway.
Right.
That's why I gave it to the House.
And so that would
So
once
you got framed. You legitimately they sense trouble. They're coming after you, so they're like, okay, we need to go and frame this guy real quick before he gets off that fucking plane.
And he did it. Bill Barr did it not because so he tried to save Trump, because Trump never would have done. Trump wanted me to go. Rudy, they wanted me to go to Vienna and get the hard drive.
Yeah.
They did not want me. What Bill Barr did, and this is what the difference between Trump and that administration and Trump and this administration and the people he has around him. Back then, he hired Bill Barr, not because he knew Bill Barr, not because he trusted Bill Barr, but because Victoria Tunzing and people around him told him Bill Barr is a perfect, he fits the part and he's going to save you from the Mueller investigation. Bill Barr had his own fucking agenda. Bill Barr didn't like Donald Trump. You could see now with Bill Barr coming out and saying all this shit. So Bill Barr was playing his own game. But Bill Barr, because he wanted to protect the presidential institution office to such a degree, he thought he was protecting Trump by arresting us, because he knew. Because remember, one thing that a lot of people don't know is, why did we get arrested? Right before our arrest, so much things happened. People don't remember. What came out? The whistleblower report. That's what started all. And in the whistleblower report, it named me and Igor as Rudy's guys. And who's the first person that saw the whistleblower report? Bill Barr. When he saw just like the Mueller report, he saw it and then he cleaned it up and issued his own report. When he saw the whistleblower report, he knew we were going to get dragged in front of Congress.
So that's why he arrested you.
He knew how do you shut somebody, and he knew we were going to talk because we were going to try to tell the Biden bullshit. And Bill Barr knew it was bullshit. Bill Barr knew it was all Russian disinformation that me, Trump, and Giuliani are put. So he knew it was going to lead to Trump. So how do you shut somebody up? He thought as soon as he arrests us, and remember, who do they give me as my attorneys? John Dowd, who was Trump's attorney. So my attorneys are telling me, shut up. Everybody's saying, so Bill Barr, beautiful. They're going to shut up. We'll give them a plea deal and then whatever. Either they go away or Trump pardon them, whatever the fuck happens. But, they're going to stay quiet. They never expected me to go rogue and have all of this evidence and start fucking going and against them. Never. That's what fucking
that's a really great distinction you're making. I've got one question about why you were flying to Vienna. Were you flying to see Firtash, and was Firtash holding the Hunter Biden laptop?
No, he wasn't holding it. He had Alexander Gorbanenko, who was the CFO of what's it called, Burisma, flying in to give us the hard drive that the Russians took when Hunter was in Kazakhstan. It wasn't that. See, there's a lot, and it'll take too much to.
Yeah, no, I was curious about the Firtash thing.
Yeah, I also just wanted to know, how did Hunter Biden's laptop smell?
The crazy part, I never got to get it. I got arrested before we got.
Yeah, I know.
Someone also wanted to know about
stay with that. Would sound like a corrupted thing. Yeah.
How does Bannon smell?
He looks like he doesn't smell great.
Tell me, how does Bannon look? Dude?
He looks like he smells.
Have you noticed that he changed his look after prison? Like all of a sudden he cleaned his shit up.
Yeah, he looks a little better.
I didn't recognize him for a little bit.
You can only wear one shirt at a time in prison, I think. I don't think
prison changes you when you got to hold someone's pocket. You come out looking a little better. More of an interest in yourself. Yeah.
So we've covered all this other stuff. Let's just quickly get to these. You've now turned. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Oh, wait,
can you hear me?
I don't hear you guys.
Hello. Can't hear us. You can hear me, Dean. I can hear you.
I got you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't hear you guys.
I don't know how.
That's so weird. I don't hear you. Neither one of you.
Do you have a mute button there that you can unmute? I guess you can see that.
Do you have a mute button? Mute button
on your phone. On your phone.
I don't know what to do.
There's a thing on your phone. I don't know how to tell you this. I guess
you want to just send him a new invite.
No,
I'll
send you guys.
We'll send you a new invite.
Everybody hears me, but I don't hear you. That's the problem.
One second. We'll send you a new invite. Hang on a second.
There we go. You have to say something, I think, in the meantime, as I do this. Lev.
There you go.
Boy, that's really interesting.
Dude, because this is a heater of a podcast, right? I'm glad that this is all natural. I'm glad this
Yeah.
is all natural. There we go. I think we got Lev back.
Hi, you there? Can you hear us? Ah, so it's your
Nothing?
audio. It's something in your audio playback. It's your volume or something.
What?
Yeah.
Let me restart my phone quickly. Maybe
Okay.
there, give me like 1 minute and
Yeah,
send
yeah.
me the
Take your time.
No
invitation,
problem.
and
Take your time.
I'm
No
gonna try
problem.
to restart my phone.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could talk about a bunch of things that we just heard because that's kind of mind blowing. I mean, it's what we've just heard.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear us?
We'll find out in a second. I think he's coming back. You got us now?
Oh no, I don't hear you
You
again.
don't hear us? You don't hear us?
That's okay.
Okay. Let's try again. If you're going to restart, I guess. Let's try that.
Yeah. Restart the podcast. We're right in the middle of it. This is like one of the greatest hours of my life because
It's
I
fascinating.
followed this guy.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the documentary From Russia with Lev, it is like one of the more eye-opening documentaries about what it's like to be in Trump's orbit. And we're just getting ready, like getting to the good stuff, personal accounts of what went into the framing of Lev, the fact that Donald Trump doesn't have friends, uses people as assets. Like that's the big takeaway here so far for me is
Yeah.
a guy like Lev, and Donald Trump talks to him for a few minutes at a dinner party in 2015, 2016. And he's like, "You got us?"
You know what? I didn't even know it. I thought I got you now on my iPad. I don't know why my phone.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Okay.
Hey,
That's
buddy.
okay.
We're
You're back.
we're recapping how we're getting a firsthand account that changes the entire fucking game. That when you like you knew Donald Trump was a transactional person, but this is like next level shit. Where you can say he's loyal, but this is the most disloyal individual on the
Oh,
planet.
that's absolutely. With him, loyalty goes one way. That's what the problem. See, when people think when you say loyalty, you think just because he demands loyalty, he's loyal
Yeah.
to you. No, he's like a mob boss. If anybody has ever really known about or read about or done research, mob bosses have loyalty only to themselves. Dictators only to themselves. They're willing to kill their right hand or anybody to stay on top. And to them, being in power means everything. Like Vladimir Putin, like Kim Jong-un, he's willing to kill his own sister, his own brother, his own father.
Yeah.
So this is the type of mentality Trump looks. So yeah, but he demands loyalty from everybody around them to be in a circle. Correct.
And so that moment when he sort of said he didn't know who you were, this is like this moment number 2 in our countdown here, but he said that he didn't know who you were and you took it very personally. Was that the moment that you decided you're going to turn? Like when did it happen that you felt like I gotta change the way I think about everything and come clean?
See, when he said that at first, I still was under the cult environment, and I thought to myself, he has to do that. It's part of a game. It's part of whatever the game plan is. So it wasn't that like I said, the first click was Rudy not showing up, Rudy sending me the postcard, me when I got out of Alexandria, that first 3 weeks of realigning with my family and hearing, because remember when I was in prison, I didn't even know 2 weeks. I didn't speak to nobody. I didn't even know what was going on.
Wow.
I had no contact, so I had no idea. And those first 2 weeks were so crucial. So when I started and then I flew to my arraignment in New York. I think within the next day or two after my release, and when I met with my lawyer, a lot of people don't know, but so Todd Blanche, you guys know who Todd Blanche is. So Todd Blanche was my Igor's lawyer and was supposed to be my lawyer. And I got into a fight with Todd and told him never to come next to my office. We were very adversarial because he represented Igor, and Todd went to fight literally against us to be able to supply Congress with the impeachment document because he was working on Trump's behalf, which everybody now knows. Back then, he was Manafort's lawyer. So that, as you could see, that I have a lot of relationship with even the Pamela Bondi.
Every single one of them, yeah.
Every single one of them. And what were you asking? I'm sorry.
I just asked about when that moment that that you realized you're going to flip.
So it wasn't like a moment. It was more of that transition of that time frame of because it still took a while, because you gotta understand, it's like a withdrawal. getting out of a cult, because, you lose everything. You lose your whole world around you, and you wake up, you don't know what to do. You can't call anybody. I went from being a man that had a Rolodex of, like the FBI said, more billionaires than they've ever seen, to all of a sudden being the most hated man by everybody, not being able to even, worried
Right.
about my kids. I had to pull my kids from school because
Wow.
they couldn't go to school. The school called me up and said, "Mr. Parnas, please have take your kids, homeschool them," or something like that. My son, it was just a lot of, like, pain that you're going through, that it's like withdrawal. And, I say, I've never been a drug addict, so I don't know what withdrawal is, but just from withdrawal from being around people and having that lifestyle. Just think about it. I would wake up and, I'd be private planes. I had 10 security guards. I would be eating at dinners that cost $3,000-4,000 a night, hotel suites 10,000 a night. I mean, that's what I was doing every
Wow.
night. Then all of a sudden, everything came crashing. They took everything. I had an ankle bracelet. My wife was going through a depression. My kids were all over the place. I couldn't do anything. I had no money. I couldn't get a job. I was under 24. They put the strictest bail conditions. I mean, my lawyer said he's seen in 30 years for somebody that is, even Bernie Madoff didn't have the same bail conditions as me. And this guy stole over billions and destroyed the country. So it was just like such a so it took some time, but I think, within the first 30 days, within the first, the trend. And then at some point, I remember we were sitting, me, my wife, and my lawyer, in his office in New York, and he said, you have to make your choice, Lev. Like, either you're gonna, because he was like pressing me, saying, "I'm not gonna defend you unless you tell the truth." Like, and I'll get some love the lawyer if you, my wife was like, you gotta stop. Get out of this shit you're in, you guy. Come on. There was the pressure, and I was like, and I have, like, that come to Jesus moment where I said to myself, either I'm gonna give Rudy a call right now and have them try to do whatever they're doing, or I'm gonna tell Rudy to go fuck himself, and I'm gonna go out there and tell the truth wherever that leads me. And that's when I made that choice, and
So
that's
it's
what
almost
we
like an
set up.
intervention by your family and your lawyers. They were like, you got to get off this
I
stuff.
mean, Aaron was
Yeah.
there. My wife was there. My lawyer was there. I mean, it was definitely intervention. I mean, and it's people don't understand how hard it is, because it's not, you lose everything. It's like, you have to start your life all over at 53 years old. All
Mm.
because most of my life, people in it were, are still Trump loyalists, because they all wanted to. I grew up around power, money, all of that. I didn't grow up where I went to college, and you know what I'm saying to you. So that whole world, I lost. I lost everything. My connections, business at that time. I mean, thank God, through the years, I've been able to weave out, and there were still a lot of good people that were miraged in there that I've been to be able to reconnect, and thank God everything's good. But in the beginning, it was like nobody wanted to touch me, not the left, not the right. I mean, just think about even the impeachment. The reason why Trump didn't get impeached is because you have guys like Adam Schiff. I know you guys think he's heroes and all of that, but they fucked up. I mean, they were scared to call me as a witness. They used They used all my evidence. They had the guy there, and they could have called me. And the reason they didn't call me is because they were scared I was a Trojan horse, that I was going to come out there and say maybe something. And by the time when they wanted to bring me and Bolton up, because if they would have brought me and Bolton up,
Yeah,
they
that would
had
have changed the
Bolton.
story. Yeah.
It would have changed it. And by the time they did it, the Senate already ruled against it. And that's why, I have my own thoughts about how the Democratic Party leadership, I think, really screwed all of us over in the past 8 years, the way they dealt with Trump, the way they dealt, and the way they left us. But that's for another day. We talk because,
Yeah, it's just very interesting stuff. I've got so many questions, but Dean, I know you want to jump in here. So
Yeah, and it might kind of hover around number one. The number one question I think we all need to ask Lev, and I think that when you look at what he does now, Lev. When I look at what you do now with you and Cohen and Malcolm Nance is just a dude. I fucking love the guy. There's more swearing in those podcasts than in any other podcast in the world, by the way. So I love it.
My wife let me. She said that's the only one. Every other one, I gotta be good, clean cuts for the kids.
You'd love to swear on that one.
Yeah, even with you guys, I just let loose a little bit, have some fun.
Dude, we like it. This is how normal people talk, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
But what you're doing now is trying to warn people, because you have firsthand experience with the first term. You've got firsthand experience with the traitor who is Donald Trump. A couple questions in one question. What do you see now, and what's your warning to people now? That's question number one, because you are intimately, you understand the cult, you understand how powerful this guy is, and is he a Manchurian candidate? Like, is he always talking to Putin? Is he always connected to these guys, or is he compromised to some extent where he doesn't have a choice, or is this is who he is, full on dictator, absolutely loves other dictators, and he wants to be king forever?
Great question, and I've been asked that question so many times. That is the number one question, and I actually did a video Substack for all the subs. If you get a chance, definitely look at it, because I really break down exactly Donald Trump from being a young boy and growing up an authoritarian father, Fred Trump, graduating and then getting a mobster mentor like Roy Cohen, going through the mob era and wanting to be a mobster, and then graduating through the 90s when the fall of Russia, meeting the oligarchy, meaning a different type of money, different type of power, and starting to look to become a dictator. And so when people ask me, is he a Manchurian candidate? Is he a puppet? No, and this is very important. I want to tell every single one of you, he's a student. He's a student of dictatorship that's trying to bring and become a master of it here in the United States. And that's more dangerous than anything. Because if you take a look what he's doing, and this is why it's important, and I'm glad you asked me that question, and I'll tell you what I want everybody to do. Because what he's trying to do right now is never have elections again. He wants to make sure that destroy our economy. He wants to destroy our institutions. He wants to go against our constitutions. And if you see all of these things, and a lot of people are saying, why is he doesn't have to do it. Is he crazy? This is all a calculated plan, because the big one's coming. The big one is when he's never going to leave office again. And he has to prep everybody to it. It's part of the psychological, manipulation, as you call it, in that cult mentality, because if he gives you enough, eventually just think about it. It's like when he put Matt Gaetz as a candidate for
Attorney General.
Attorney General. So after Matt Gaetz, Pam Bondi looked like a fucking celeb. You know what I'm saying?
It's amazing.
You know what I'm saying to you? It's a special way of him doing things, and so what I want to tell everybody, what's important, because I know him very well. If you give him enough time, you're not going to have 2026 elections. You're not going to have 2028 elections. He's going to destroy this. He's going to take this over. And I know a lot of people are doing a lot of things, and, the protests and all of this, great. But that takes time, and that's what he's counting on. And if the protests get too big, he'll use, force. And he's literally, I have sources there telling me he's talking about trying to figure out how he could use military on American citizens inside the U.S. So, this is where we're
the first
going.
time.
Exactly, for first. So you gotta understand, that's great. So what I'm telling you need to do is, my call to action is, we can't wait. We need to flip the House now. There's certain congressmen right now and congresswomen that are Republicans, like Don Bacon and Fitzpatrick and others that I've been mentioning, that we need to get on it, and everybody needs to let their voices. Like, take a look at Bacon, for instance. He's been against Trump. He went up against him so many times, and he even got death threats. His family. I have sources telling me he's looking to retire, folks. This guy's, because of the death threats Mega's doing, because he went up against Trump. This is a guy that we need to be calling, every single one of you, everybody, to tell their friends that, and we need to put pressure, because if one of them cracks, we could get, all we need is 6, 7. Just think about this. 6, 7 people, 6, 7 souls could save our democracy. We don't have to wait until 26. If they align right now with the Democrats and give Hakeem Jeffries the gavel, we are able to impeachments. We're able to do investigations. We're able to do subpoenas. We're able to look into. We will be able to maybe not do everything we want. That we're going to still deal with a lot of shit, but we'll have a chance, because right now we have zero.
Well, the Senate won't convict him ultimately.
But you don't say that, because
you don't know that. I'm actually having a hard time hearing you guys, because my audio keeps cutting out. So, Dean, I think.
Sorry, you said go ahead. Don't say that. Lev, go ahead and finish that thought. Yeah.
The remainder of this. I'll try to plug this in. Maybe it'll be better.
Yeah, because it's very important, because the Senate is just like the Congress. What you guys don't understand is what Trump is doing. What Trump is doing is hitting all these Congress and Senate, not only their constituents, but their own families, their own homes. Not everybody could afford to lose all this money and they are seeing, they know it even better than the media is reporting it, or the people are saying. They know what he's doing, that with the tariffs and the economy, it's going to go to shit. They know that it's happening. They know. So there's a lot of people but they're scared. They're scared because you know what? Just like when I tried to come over, the Democrats destroyed me. They didn't come in and say, "Hey, Lev, okay, we don't care that you were there, but you're telling us the truth." I had spent 4 years of fighting and trying to show my sincerity to be able to, and that's the problem with the Democrat. We need to be able to show unity or say, "We don't care about your policies. We don't care about. We'll deal with policies later." Right now, we got to save our democracy. Right now, we need to unite to save our democracy, and then we could go back to having our disagreements about policies and if we about Medicaid and about
Agreed. Yeah.
Roe versus Wade.
Here,
It's not
here.
about that right now. Right now, we need to unite and say, doesn't matter, and all it takes is 6, 7, but we need one because once it's like a domino effect. You get one, and that's Trump's number one thing that he knows he can't control, guys. Everything else, he got the media, he got the DOJ, he got the FBI, he got the CIA, he got everything. There's nothing. There's no. You could sit here and tomorrow, if he wants to, he will shut down every protest because that's what he could do. And like it or not, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm going to tell you the truth. You gave him the power. The voters gave him the power. The Democratic Party left him the fucking power. He has the power. So you have to realize it and deal with what you have and not fantasize.
And I agree with you. Yeah, there's a limited window here. Maybe it's 80 days. I said the other day because after 6 months, it's game over. They will take over everything. And so we've got this limited amount of time now with stuff can happen. Your solution is quite a good solution. Can it happen in that amount of time? I don't know. Certainly, protest is the other solution.
Yeah, we got to keep everything going.
But the most important thing that you're saying there is for unity. Everyone needs to get together behind this notion that we don't like this guy and we don't want him in power anymore. And differences at this point don't matter. I mean, I was saying before the show, I've covered you, Lev, many, many years and not always favorably. I've always said, I've reported you in ways that have been not very nice. But truthfully, at this point, if you're in favor of getting rid of this guy, you're my ally, and
Absolutely.
and the same with everybody else.
Later, we could go back to disagreeing on policies about Roe versus Wade or anything. But right now, if we don't save our democracy, we'll never be able to agree or disagree again.
Yeah,
we're going to be, we're going to be in a place, like you said, 6 months from now, looking back and saying we had the opportunity, we had the chance. And just think about, and I hate to compare World War II and Hitler and all that because it's so nasty and so disgusting to you. But just think about all those people that sat there and thought that they could have stopped Hitler.
Yeah,
they had the chances. They could have stopped Stalin. They're and they didn't because they didn't think it was actually going to happen. And the biggest problem we have, and that I've seen that the most thing is most people can't imagine that it actually could happen. Most people can't imagine that in America we could have dictatorship. Most people in America, but I want you to open your eyes and wake up where we are. It's 2025 and we live in America where in most states you can't get abortion. Women don't have lost their rights.
We're going there.
We have people getting taken off the streets. We have 2-year-olds being deported. We have a president that doesn't give a shit about the Constitution, the Supreme Court, or anything. We have a attorney general that won't prosecute anybody and is going after not people that are doing wrong, but people that are the leakers that are trying to say, okay, give you the truth. So just think about, and when I even talk about the free press and the media and the free speech, these are all first step of, you guys go look at any documentary about any society that turned into a dictatorship, this is a carbon copy.
Yeah.
And forget about Hitler, Russia, Hitler, anyone. You look at anyone.
Pinochet, every single one of them. Within 6 months, they consolidate power, and then there's a point of no return. And we're heading to that point of no return. And you know what I find?
We need too loud right now. Unite and make our voices louder than ever together. Call these congressmen and senator, and call Jeffries and say, get your ass up there. Cut a deal with Bacon. He's the guy. We know he's the guy. I'm telling you, he's the guy. I got sources inside. Go fucking speak to him. Cut the deal. He'll bring in the rest of the 5, 6. And once it's a chain event. And then at least we have a fighting chance because you know what? We might not be able to stop him on everything, but we could make his life miserable. And we could, it's not, it's like having a bulldozer all of a sudden go, and then we could survive 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we can make it. But right now we have no defense.
So what you're saying is really important. If there's 1,000 people watching now, if everyone could call their representative or call Hakeem Jeffrey's office and give them this advice. Tell them exactly what you want them to do as representatives in order to save this country. I think that's a very, very good strategy. I think, alongside protests, I'm still a big believer in protests, and I think that they have to happen. And, the more people on the
100%.
streets are out there saying that they don't want this guy in power, the better off we are. But we should be doing it in as many numbers and as united, because this entire country knows now that, everyone can see what's going to happen now with the economy. Everyone can see that Donald Trump has lied to them about so much. Republicans, Democrats, whoever you are, this is the time to get rid of this guy.
And Zev, you're 100% right. But when I say unity, like, give you an example.
Yeah.
Instead of having hundreds of thousands of people protest all over the place, protest in Don Bacon's office. Not
All right.
inside his.
Yeah.
I'm saying to you, let's get 100,000 people around his office screaming, saying, "We want you to save our democracy." Let's get 100,000 people outside Capitol Hill. Combine it. The phone calls, the protests, unity to give one message. The message should be: is we want to save our democracy. That's it.
I've been waiting for that million people to show up at the Capitol Hill or outside the White House. I'm waiting for that picture because we need that picture. Yeah,
forget about independents, Democrats. We're fucking Americans. Forget that. We're fucking human beings. We're human beings. Let's not forget that. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We all bleed the same way. We need to unite. And that's why, I keep saying, and that's the problem with a lot of the, platforms that are out there. And I keep going and spreading the word. I've only been on Substack 3-4 weeks, guys, but the love here is incredible.
You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. But I think that if we join forces and everybody, like you said, we have 1,000 people here. If each one went and sent 2-3 people, and then those people went 2-3 people, just think about, and believe me, folks, these congressmen, if they get 30,000 phone calls right now, I guarantee you they wake up. I guarantee you they wake up, say.
And they're seeing it in their polling. They're seeing it from their donors. They're seeing it because they know what's going on.
They want it. They need the push. They want it. They're suffering themselves. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm so passionate.
No,
but because I think this is the most important thing right now that we need to push is to act now. And that's why I say flip the house now. Don't wait till 2026. Let's flip the house now. Trump's giving us the ammunition. Trump's doing it. These people are in the same pain. They're the same. They bleed the same way all of us. They eat the same way all of us. They put on their pants one at a time. They're the same thing. So it doesn't matter if they're Congress. Their 401ks are going down just like your 401k. Their kids' security is going down. They're feeling the same thing, folks. And believe me, these people, not the ones I'm telling you, they're not mega. This is where you have to be very important. It's the mega lunatics out there that are screaming, "I don't care if I lost 10 million today. I'm voting. I'd rather have Donald Trump." Great, fuck you. Enjoy yourself. Ain't it rough? Right? That's not. But I'm talking about the regular person.
Yeah.
So that should be our motto, and that's why every show, and we should pass on anybody, flip the house now, and that's what we should be calling. We should call Hakeem Jeffries, and not only Hakeem Jeffries, all of you, or just even Democrat, and tell them, listen, we're speaking with love. They all know me. You could tell them, I told you so. They all know me. Trust me, I tell you. And you could say, flip the house now. Flip the house now. Just keep going. And that's what we need to do.
And every representative, it doesn't matter who they are, call them right now and tell them this is where you want to go. This is how the president is illegitimate. The president needs to go. No one wants him to be there anymore. And this is what the Constitution says you can do. You're empowered to do it.
That's the people's voice. The strongest thing is the people's voice. We don't need guns, arms, our voice. And that's what Trump is trying to shut down. Is our voice, because once he takes away our voice, once he shuts down the independent journalists, the media, the leakers, it's over with, folks. You will never, ever get the truth again for a long time, because then what's implanted is propaganda machines. Then comes out all these CNN, the shit that will come out of them, it won't be the same thing. It will be just like in Russia. They have 4 or 5 channels, and believe me, Putin dictates every fucking channel. What I'm saying to you, so just trust me when I tell you, that's why right now, the only thing we still have to try to save it is our voices, our unity. And that's what we need to use right now to win this battle. So, yeah.
Well said.
Listen, Lev, I can't thank you enough. I said when we lost your audio there for a minute, I said to Zev, I'm like, this is the best hour of my fucking life. When you get a chance to talk to, what turns out to be, a Democratic hero, someone who grew up on the mean streets of Brighton, someone who understands what democracy is all about because you've lived under a dictatorship, someone who knows the players that are trying to turn the United States of America into Russia as we speak, complete with with oligarchs and a king who can change the Constitution, to your point. And it's everybody's job to get out there and support democracy by, talking to people that have access points to talk to other congressmen, to flip the House, to show up for protests, and to stand up for America, as you pointed out, and humanity, and the lack of humanity that I see with Donald Trump as he's pulling people off the streets, 2-year-olds with cancer, sending them out of the country, saying, you're Hispanic, so fuck you. I mean, that's exactly what he's doing. He's instituting gulags. He's sending people to CCOT. You've got the people doing human chains, with SOS, saying, come and help us, that were pulled out of their homes and legal jobs, living in that beautiful country. And America's a beautiful country. We understand the difference, and I say this all the time in the podcast. We understand the difference between Americans and MAGA Americans, right? We understand that we're appealing to sense, which is why we elected Mark Carney as the Prime Minister of Canada. We know he's a MAGA killer. Like the entire country.
That was a great catch.
Wasn't that awesome? Yeah, it was good. It was a big fuck you to Trump.
Oh, well done.
So, there are heroes and there are people that meet the moment, and you're one of them. So I've really appreciated it. And I just got one question before we end the podcast. Who killed Jeff Epstein?
You're gonna. I don't even want to. You'll think I'm crazy, but when I was in prison, one of the Dominican guys that I was in prison with happened to be in MDC with Epstein, cleaning up after he goes to me. He goes, "Love," he goes, "Put it to you this way: after he died, he goes, they fed us all with the best food. They kept us quiet. So you take it for what it is." And he goes, he was cleaning. He was doing the clean. He goes, I've never seen so many, what's it called? He had bed sheets and all that shit. He goes, because he was in segregated. I was in segregated. Well, just so you understand, I was in segregated. I had maybe one bed sheet. I don't even think I had one bed sheet. I mean, like you sleep on a metal and cement. I mean, it's like, so what I'm saying to you is, if anyone saw the pictures also of the sale, listen. I hate with me, it's hard. I hate to answer questions like that. I'll be honest with you. Why? Because I have my opinions, but I try to not give opinions too much, because why my platform is so strong is because I stick to the facts and the truth that I've lived. And when you get into rabbit holes of opinions, it's easy for them to discredit you later on. Then go out. So I try to, there's shows where we can fuck around and I'll give you my opinions. And believe me, my opinions are pretty good. I'll tell you that much.
I bet. But they're educated.
Because right now we're in such a fight to save our democracy. Like, I try to stay away from opinions and stick to facts, truth, receipts, because that's the only way we could defeat them. So, but take it for what I said.
I will. Don't you worry. I'm taking it for what you said. And I wanted to throw a little shot in the dark at the end of the podcast there to kind of have some fun. But I can't believe you even went that far. Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Lev Parnas, you people, please go and subscribe to his Substack. He is brilliant. He and Michael Cohn do a great podcast. Malcolm Nance was on with you the other day. Story Time with Lev, where you read out of Shadow Diplomacy, which is your book. Highly encourage everybody to Google him, look up his story, and cross-reference everything that's been written about him with the conversation from the man today. And Lev, I hope, maybe we can chat once in a while and talk about, where Canada and America can get together and inform people, and we can have you back on the podcast, and we can do some shorter stuff, some long-form stuff. But blessings to you and your family, and really appreciate you spending some time with us today, brother.
It's awesome.
God bless you guys, and thank you for all the work you do. And I just want to say to you, absolutely. That's why I said unity, one team. Anytime there's something, feel free to call me. I'll call up, because sometimes my reporting is primarily has to do with Russia, Ukraine, Trump, but if you need anything, I got sources all over the place. And, Canada is very important. That's why Malcolm and a lot of guys call me on stuff like other stuff. But, we need to stick together. And that's why the more we get you people, all the subscribers informed, that's the only way we're going to be able to beat this tyrant, because you have to know him. That's why the Democrats lost. Kamala Harris has never been in a room with Donald Trump until that first debate. None of
Yeah.
these people have ever met him, never sat with him, never talked to him, never even understood. To them, he's an imaginary human being that they've made up, and they think and they try to play by a certain rule. They don't know that he doesn't have any rules. He makes his own game. So with that, I want to say, God bless you guys. God bless America. God bless Canada. God bless Ukraine. And, God bless all of us so we could say, survive this period of time that we're living through. But, together we will stand, together we will rise, and together we will win.
What an incredible story, Lev Parnas. Thank you very much for being here tonight. And wow, we're blown away by your whole story, the whole redemption thing. It's really amazing.
Get a Substack. Go and subscribe. Free or paid. Always paid is good because this guy's doing yeoman's work. But go and sub to his Substack. He's the best.
Thank you, guys. Love you
all. Right, thank you. Cheers. Have a good night. Cheers. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you again soon. Good night, Dean. Or do you want to stick around? Should we say something? We should stay.
Yeah, it was a great Substack. It was a great FiveStack today on Substack.
Amazing.
Did you like that?
I loved it because I've reported on this guy, and often you learn to you try to keep no opinions.
You've been salty with him over time.
I've reported some things that he's not been happy. I've reported on. I mean, they were truthful at the time, and they're still true today. But they haven't liked it, and I've known a lot of these characters in that world. I've known Felix Sater for a long time. I understand exactly how that world began in Brooklyn, and Olga Lautman, who we have on the show regularly, she grew up in the same neighborhood over there with Lev. I mean, these people.
Oh, she was on with Lev the other day. As a matter of fact,
they all have the same kind of heritage. And as I was saying at the start of the show, that we're all this 50-something-year-old category of people, and it's Generation X who still remember.
And we look fucking great too.
You look amazing, but we still
snacks.
We know what World War II did to our families. Yeah. We still have a memory of that, so we understand where the world is going if Donald Trump continues to go where he's going, because we've seen the effect that it has on all our families. And, that's Lev's family that ran away from Russia. My family ran away from Russia too. It's, there's a story that we're all sort of familiar with. It's built into our genetics. It's built into our DNA.
Yeah.
Your history of your family fighting the Nazis. I mean, you've got a sense amongst people of our age that we know what we're running from, what we're trying to warn the world for. And, we need to use that voice as much as possible right now, because the future is going to look a lot like Nazi Germany in World War II if we don't stop this. This is where we're heading.
Yeah, well said. And the other takeaway I got out of that, other than that extreme warning from a guy who truly knows the players involved in the Trump regime, was that he probably smells like a full diaper.
Probably. And yes, Jeffrey Epstein, yes.
And the Epstein thing. Aren't you happy I was here for that? Just to throw a couple of those in there. And Rudy smells like old booze and smokes.
Yeah, which is like congealed over several days. It's not just like not fresh smoke.
Yeah, he really got graphic. He's like, imagine taking booze and a cigar, leaving it in a closed room for several days, and that's Rudy Giuliani.
I've got a photograph in my archives of Rudy and Lev actually smoking. You can see the cigar smoke in some back room somewhere.
Yeah,
I didn't get there because I wanted to hear about the the whole meeting at the little Havana thing, the Havana Club in New York. I mean, there's lots of stuff there that we didn't get to hear from him. But
well, he said he'd come back, dude.
Yeah,
like he wants to be a correspondent. Like who'd have thought the FiveStack would have Lev Parnas as a correspondent
big deal,
for
man.
all things Russia.
Big deal. It's all you're doing, Dean. He's such a big shot.
He and I are like we were number 2 and number 3 on new bestsellers for a while. And I sent him a quick note, and I'm like, hey, great podcast. Just want to say, he got back to me right away. He says, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Hi, Canada. And I'm like, come on the show sometime. He goes, anytime you want. And then, boom, he shows up Friday at 3 o'clock, says he's got an hour, gives us an hour and a half, bears his soul, all the vulnerabilities, talks about, the destruction of his family, the destruction of his life. And you can say what you want about how that man grew up, but he survived on the streets of Brighton, coming from Odessa, being pulled or pushed out of Russia.
There was no other way.
In a communist regime. It is his life. I fucking love Lev Parnas. Give me more Lev Parnas too.
And you know what? Aaron Parnas. Let's see if we can get both of them on the show together. Because I want to hear that story. Because at the beginning of the show, when he was talking about how proud he is of his son, and of the ability to turn that adversity into something really amazing.
He's huge on this app, by the way.
Yeah, he is, and he's someone I've been following for a long time. And I think that there's there's something really important about that multi-generational approach, and people have to like just sort of hear what their fathers are saying, and the sons have a lot of work to do too. But we need to get that united front, and whether it's families uniting or generations uniting or parties uniting, we have to get behind the same idea, and we have to do it quickly because this man is going to consolidate power in a way that is terrifying. So maybe we'll get Aaron and Lev to come on and talk about that next
Let's
time.
do it. Thanks for doing this today, Zev. Thanks for
thank
letting
you.
us bogey your time this afternoon.
It's
It was a lot of
Friday,
fun.
worth every minute of
It's
it.
Friday, yeah. Dun-na-dun-na-dun-na-dun-na.
You crack me up.
Friday, yeah.
He's the guy
Dun-na-dun-na-dun.
who gets to do this. I get to say thanks for being here, everybody.
Bye,
We'll
all.
see you again Monday. Bye.